Hello, welcome to the Happy Hearts Project podcast and part 4 of the reclamation series. My name is Cassie. I am your host. I am just now realizing that I probably haven't done the best job of introducing myself to you. If you are new to the podcast, if you came here for the reclamation series, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. I am a coach. I work with individuals and couples, kind of all genders. Really, I love working with women. I feel like I talk to women. I market a lot to women, but I'm surprised how many men choose to work with me, which is great too. I love working with men, but I really work with people to help move past their blocks. I help them get unstuck in their life and their relationships. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of like really ambitious, driven people who have worked really hard to create the life that they have. And then they kind of realize, like, this isn't what I thought it would be. I thought I did all the things right, and I'm still not feeling the way that I thought that I would feel. And a lot of times, people who have been through a lot of therapy or, they've invested in a lot of things and have yet to really experience the transformation that they desire, they come to me and I take them really deep. So I hope that you're experiencing that with this series. This is part 4. As I mentioned earlier, I am definitely flying this plane as I build it. I didn't really have like much of a plan because I really like to just speak from the heart and let it flow organically. That's how I function my best. But I was thinking about, like, what did I promise you? Why are you here? What did you come from potentially because I said that I would give you something? So we've talked about, like, how do we lose our power? Where do we give it away? How is our authenticity really our power? How is being our most true version of ourselves actually like the most magnetic way to creating the life and the relationships and the business that we want? Um, and I talk a lot in other episodes about like boundaries and all those things. Like, if you really want to lean into boundaries, I have other episodes on that. So maybe go like explore that there. But because I mean, your boundaries are so empowering. I believe that your boundaries are based on like your self-concept. They're really the standards for what you are willing to allow in your life. And I also think that your boundaries are like an invitation. Your boundaries are, when they're done well and they're done with love, they are empowering to you and to the person who is like interacting with them, right? So I'm like, I don't think I really want to talk about boundaries so much. I think what I want to talk about is like leaning into your gifts, because I think that once you start to recognize your authenticity, once you start to realize that you don't want to play small anymore, you don't want to limit yourself, you're kind of like, well, crap, like, what do I want to do? Like, I'm starting to notice that the things in my life aren't what I thought they would be. What would I rather do instead? And so I thought, well, how do I want to talk about that? And I think I'm going to start with kind of, again, I hope you're not tired of my story. We're going to talk some more about my story today. I want to talk to you about how I discovered my gifts. But first, I'm going to pull us an oracle card because I've really been enjoying that part of this series. So I already gave him a little bit of a mix, but I'll do it one more time. See if anything jumps out at me. Doesn't look like it will. So I'm just going to pull from the middle of the deck. Okay, very interesting. This is Trust the Seasons. It says, embracing change, cycles of life, transition, growth. Not feeling as like energized by this card, to be honest, as I have in the other parts of the series, but we're gonna go with it. I'm gonna just set it here to this side. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll let you see the photo here. She's standing here. You can kind of see that she's like multi-dimensional. Ooh, I like this. Okay. Now that I'm describing the card to you, it's starting to spin in my head how I can incorporate this. She's kind of multi-dimensional, but she has, because she's got like different versions of her kind of like reflecting to her sides. And then she has kind of this crown It's the Rose Oracle card deck that I used here. So every card has roses on it. But you can kind of see that every version of her has kind of like this rose crown, something that's like floating above her head, and it's circulating kind of this like one light, right? This, which is kind of giving like the sense of like a oneness, kind of like she has all of these versions of herself, but really they all come back to the same place through this like light. And I also see some big evergreens in the back, which is really beautiful. There's a moon in the back. It's like it's a full moon. I'm sure that there's something about this. I don't read cards enough to know, but like the moon's over her left shoulder and maybe the sunshine is over her right shoulder. Um, over like these kind of mountainous areas and these beautiful evergreen trees. And she's anointed. She's wearing this beautiful jewelry. She's wearing kind of a white lace, maybe dress. So beautiful card. It is Trust the Seasons in the Rebecca Campbell Rose Oracle. So if you want to look it up online, you can see the image there. I'm just going to set this to the side. Trust the Seasons. Interesting. Okay. How do we discover our gifts? We know that like you can do all kinds of things. Like you have a job, right? Like you've acquired a lot of skills, but being skilled at something doesn't necessarily mean that it's your zone of genius or that it is like your soul's purpose or that it's going to be emotionally fulfilling for you. And what this is reminding me of is when I was a social worker, I managed some programs and a team, and I became responsible for managing our data. It's funny. If you know me, that's funny. I had to get really good at Excel. And thank God I took statistics in college. Not that that really means much because my friend was very helpful. Thank you, Joel. Thank you. Shout out to Joel for making sure that I passed statistics in my undergrad. But thank God I took it because I did have an understanding of data and how to read it, how to interpret it. Um, and so I was able to do what I needed to do to put in our reports for my job and kind of tell a story with the information that we had and to use it to plan and problem solve. And like I am analytical. Like that is one of my gifts is I can sit down with you and I can pinpoint the problem real quick. Um, it's easier to do for someone else than it is for yourself for sure. But like I do have that analytical piece, but I much more enjoy doing it with people than I do with spreadsheets and numbers. And Excel makes me want to light my house on fire. So, can I just quick side note? Like I cannot believe how much of like our society relies on such a faulty program. It is so easy for Excel to become corrupted, not save, right? Like you have multiple people in there. My husband works in data and he works in Excel every day. And I just cannot believe that these like multi-million, billion-dollar companies, government systems rely on such a faulty program. Mind blowing. But, anyways, I learned how to do that because I had to. And I did have some skill set in it, but like I don't love numbers. That is not my passion. But I did like that I could use it to improve what I did care about, which was the work that I did with my clients and my staff and my people, right? So I can appreciate that, but I wouldn't say that's where I'm gifted. And so I thought, like, what is kind of my story to discovering my gifts? And I always knew that I wanted to help people. I remember being in college, or not in college, in high school. Um, I wrote like a letter to myself from like my future self. And I imagined my future self had a private practice as a marriage and family therapist. And that I would be a mom and all these things. But like I knew I wanted to like work in psychology. So I went and got my undergrad. I started the University of Cincinnati and I was registered as a psychology student. I took 1 quarter of Psych 101 and I was like, this is bullshit. I hated my Psych 101 classes. I hated learning about Freud. Like it was just so like stuffy old man. It did not light me up. It did not excite me. And so then I registered as undecided. I kind of became like an exploratory student where it was just my job to take different classes and find things that interest me. So I remember taking a communications course. I I really don't remember the progress of that, but I ended up majoring in interpersonal communication because I loved those classes. I loved talking about philosophy, ways of thinking, how people interact. Like to me, that was so much more interesting than diagnosing and pathologizing people. I loved my comm classes. Like they just felt fun. So I attended them. And then I also ended up getting a second bachelor's in Spanish because while I didn't feel like I was very gifted at Spanish, I loved learning the language. I loved learning different cultures, Latin American cultures. I studied abroad in Costa Rica. I studied abroad in Spain. I learned how to salsa dance. I loved all of the different types of foods that I got to experience with those um, like the way that I was traveling or joining different multicultural clubs. Like I loved that, which by the way, if you haven't heard my episode where I talk about astrology, this was really validated for me when I looked at my ninth house. I can't really tell you exactly what it is about my ninth house that says that this is me, but there was some part of it that said like I actually am gifted in foreign language, right? And that I love to explore. I'm really curious. I want to explore different cultures. I want to see the world, but I also like want to explore ideas. All of that really resonated with me. And then I got out of college and the economy was pretty bad. It was really hard to find work. And I applied for a lot of different jobs, but I think I just knew that I needed to do something that mattered to me. I mean, my teachers tried to hold me back a lot in school because if I didn't care, I wouldn't participate in class. If they didn't maintain my interest, if I didn't feel like it applied to me, I wouldn't participate. So they told my mom I had a learning disability, but really I just was uninterested in what they had to teach. So I know that like I need things that I care about. So I ended up doing social work, which in the beginning I did really love, but I was like really working on like climbing that ladder, which now I also know is because I'm always about the next project. I always need to be working on the next thing. Um, and so for me to get kind of like pigeonholed into an industry, I became a manager at the age of 31 and realized like I was already making just as much money as like a lot of directors at other nonprofits. And I wanted to make more money. I wanted to have an impact. And the higher I got up in my industry as a manager, the less impact I felt like I was able to have. In fact, I just started to feel unaligned with the vision and the mission of the program that I worked for because I realized how limited it was with like all of the red tape and all of the funding issues and all the rules and regulations. And my like Aquarius self was like, I don't want to play by your rules. I don't want to play by your rules. I want to do my own thing. And so I started this business. I started coaching and it has lit me up. It has been harder than anything ever because it has forced me to face my wounding and my worthiness. It has forced me to believe in myself like I never have before. But looking backwards, like I remember people being like, what are you going to do with a bachelor's in interpersonal communication? You know what I'm going to do? I am going to help people with the most important aspects of their life, which is how they interact with other people, how they interact in their marriages, with their children, with their staff, with their neighbors, with their friends, with their bosses. And most importantly, with themselves. And I'm going to be really stinking good at it. I'm going to be really good at it, right? So I know that that's my gift. So, how did I get there? I really feel like, and I'm sure I'll continue to explore my gifts, but it's really about exploring and leaning into your desires and kind of asking yourself, like, what would I be doing right now if I weren't feeling so bogged down by my obligations? How would I want to spend my time? What actually sounds fun? And you kind of just have to trust that even if it doesn't make sense, you just kind of have to trust that it's working out for you. So I think that that's what this card of trust the seasons. She's a multi-dimensional, there's all these different parts of her, but they're all connected back to this one piece, the source, her source, right? Whatever that is. Some people refer to source as God, higher power, higher self, like source, energy in general, right? And so when I saw these like multi-dimensional parts of her, I'm thinking to myself, and like, so there's the sun and the moon on this card. This is going to be like super out there, but I love this idea, which is that like time is a concept. Time is a concept that our brains create so that we can experience what it's like to be a human. But for our souls, like we're like our souls are not constrained by time. This greater part of us that's connected to our source, to our higher power, like it sees beyond time. And so for me to study communication and for people to be like, that's not even a thing. Like there are no jobs that require you to have a bachelor's of arts in interpersonal communication. And my soul's like, that's fine. I don't need this for a job. I don't need this to work for somebody else. I need this so that I can go work for myself and so that I can go do my soul's purpose. I didn't know that then. I get to know that now. Also love, I think it was Steve Jobs who said this. I read this quote at some point, probably on, Facebook. I subscribe. I'm a, I'm a common participant on Facebook, so I get a lot of my media there. But Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them moving backwards or looking backwards, right? We can look backwards and see how we got here. And that is so powerful. I actually have a whole podcast episode about that. I think it's about coding your brain for success, is what I called it. So if you're interested in kind of learning more about the power of doing that, check out that podcast episode. But we don't get to know. We are kept like our human selves, this brain, this consciousness that have available to us is kept on a need to know basis. I don't need to know really about much in the future, right? Like I have some loose idea of what's going to happen tomorrow and next week and 6 months from now. And then like there's going to be a lot that happens that I'm not going to be able to anticipate. Thank goodness. But that uncertainty can really, really, really be uncomfortable. But you have to trust the seasons. You have to trust that this part of my exploration is just part of my success story, even if I don't get to know how. I don't get to know how me losing this job is part of my reclamation story. I don't get to know how this breakup is part of my reclamation story. But I'm going to trust that it's going to bring other things into my life that I get to explore and decide if I want to create more or less of. And I'm just going to take the next right step and the next right step and the next right step and the next right step. So be on the lookout in your inbox for today's journal prompts. I'm going to help you explore your desires so that you can really lean into like, what are your gifts? Because they are 100% aligned. 100% aligned. The things that you want to do, the things that you enjoy, The things that make you feel good are going to create the best version of you. And the best version of you has beautiful gifts to share. So I really want to get you out of this kind of functioning for survival. And I want to get you into showing up to create your life intentionally and to lean into what is possible for you if you really accepted your gifts, if you really learn to love and accept yourself and to show up that version of you so authentically that the rest of the world has no choice but to see you and to reciprocate that because they can finally see your value. They can finally bask in it. Like your value shows them their own value, right? Like we all get to collectively like rise together because you're part of that effort. You're part of that shift, right? So I know it's kind of out there, but guys, if I'm telling you to be unapologetically and wholly yourself, I have to do the same. So that's me. That's how I see the world. Take a look at the emails. And then I'm also throwing it out there for my audience this week. I really want to explore the idea of creating a community where we have these kinds of conversations on the regular. And I want to see your face there. I don't want myself to just be a talking head. Like, I want you to be there to explore these ideas together and for us to get you past these blocks. So more to come on that. If you want to know about this community, if you want to be able to join, if you want to be in on like the early stages, I'm doing like some founders specials for the first several people who sign up. If you want to be in on that, you need to be in my email list. Okay. So you can get the details. Yep. Subscribe, guys. The link is in the episode description and you will start receiving emails today. All right. I love you. Talk to you soon.